welcome to Commander Central, episode 109, and today we're going to be taking a look at listener Kennodise's Ramos Sunforger deck. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
How was everyone's holiday weekend as we're recording this on a Monday of Memorial Day?
I should take off my clothes and show you my body.
Did you get a little sunburn fishing or something?
Yes, and eaten alive.
the mosquitoes are out?
We do have 3 fish that are going up on the wall, though. So.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
What'd you catch?
Smallmouth bass.
Nice. Yep. What lake were you fishing in?
We're fishing on the Eau Claire River and some of our secret holes that we haven't fished in years since our old man passed. Me and my brother went. So
Excellent. Well, that's a pretty good use of your weekend time.
Yeah, it was awesome. After the first day, I'm just like, oh yeah, it feels good. And he calls me that night. He's like, you want to go again tomorrow? I'm like, sure. That was a mistake.
Yeah, because it was like gorgeous Saturday and Sunday. It was, and it was also just cool enough that you probably out in the sun felt like, oh, I'm fine.
And you're standing right next to the water and it's reflecting. And you don't even notice it. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, it's a nice day to be out, but yeah, that sunburn's rough.
Mm-hmm.
I did some yard work. I put on a bunch of mulch and wound up. If you can see my eye from here, I blew out a blood vessel in one of my eyes. I've got a real nasty.
How'd you pull that off?
I don't even know. I didn't even notice I did it until this morning. I rolled over. My wife's like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Go look at your eye in the mirror." And I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty disgusting." Yeah. So that's supposedly will take 6 to 8 days to heal. So I'll be probably looking pretty gross for Magic Fest Kansas City too.
Yeah.
So that'll be all right.
Lovely.
And I wish I would have taken a picture because it would have been so nice to post on the Twitter account. So my wife bought a flag she wanted to hang on the front of our house, like the city's flag. So she bought that, and I told her I would hang the flagpole bracket thing. But she wanted it hung, and I was working on something else. So at some point she came in and said, "You're going to need to give me a hand with this." So I walked outside and looked. It was like if you did it as a joke, if you mounted that flagpole as a joke on the side of the house, I don't know how you would do a better job. Like 2 screws are stripped out and like in kind of sideways. And none of them, they were all like halfway in. None of them got further than halfway before they stripped. They were all at different angles and bent. And it's not like she's incompetent at that kind of thing. She just put my grill together like 2 weeks ago. She's very handy. I don't know what went wrong, but it was the most ridiculous drunk attempt to assemble something I've ever seen before. It took me probably 20 minutes to get the screws back out then. Because they were so stripped, I had to go get like a vice grips and like grip on them and like turn them out 1/4 turn at a time to get them back out. And she used the cheap screws that came with that. She should have just used better screws. That was the whole problem. But like, I'm like, why did you not stop after one? I don't understand.
Well, because, okay, if you ever do anything like that, if you ever strip out one, you're like, oh, that'll be fine. We'll just put in the next one.
Right.
And the other ones will hold it.
Right. That's what I think with the thought problem. I was just so stunned. I was like, what is going on here? I was so shocked by the sheer level of incompetence at it. I was like, I didn't take a picture and I should have because it was pretty amazing. So, I will continue to say, like, in her defense, she's usually really good at that kind of thing, but I don't know what happened that night. So that was something I wish I would have taken a picture of.
Wow.
So yeah, we did that. We put a bunch of mulch down. We planted some plants. So we were fairly productive. Took some nice naps. That's always good on a holiday weekend as well. So I didn't get sunburned like Chris. That's all right also. And next weekend, Magic Fest Kansas City.
Yeah, we'll be on the way there when this airs.
Yeah, this airs on Thursday. We'll be in the car. Not Chris, though. He's holding on the home fort.
Indeed.
Anything else worth exciting talking about?
Nope.
Did you play this week, Max?
Nope.
You did not. And Chris
Well, I can't see the future, but I'm assuming no.
I guess by the time this airs, yes. That's why it aired on Thursday. Yeah, I will go play tomorrow. I think I'm going to try to get a few games in at least.
No, I won't be. We have a showing on in our apartment, so I got to take the dogs and go.
Yeah.
So. And my wife's going to the cities with a friend.
Okay.
So my goddaughter's going to get her nose pierced. I want your guys' opinion on this.
To each their own.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't.
She's 15. Come on, give me some more. I mean,
it could be worse.
Dina, you're a father. What if Declan was a girl?
What does that have to do with 15? Anything about it?
Yeah, I mean the gender I don't think is relevant to me. I don't think it matters. I don't know, to be honest with you. I've got plenty of I've had weird piercings in the past.
I was going to say, he's got weird piercings. Where at? Let's hear this.
I mean, my tongue was pierced once upon a time. My wife has had a ton of weird piercings that I won't go into. So she's, yeah. So like, clearly that's acceptable at our house. 15 is right on the edge, though. I'm like, I'm not sure I would. I don't know. I don't know, to be honest. I just don't know. But it's also a different deal now, I think, than it was. I think it was probably much more like taboo 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Today, I think it's probably weird to not have something pierced if you're a kid, I would think, almost.
I blame the Disney Channel.
I don't know. My brother had all sorts of piercings all over his body, and he's got all the scars from them because he doesn't
He's taking them all out. Yeah.
He had one in his, like, the bridge of your nose up here.
Ow.
He had his nose actually pierced, and yeah.
Yeah, I will. I was never a big, aside from the tongue, that's really the only serious one I really ever had in ears, I guess, but that was it. Nope.
Not for me.
Yeah. So your wife's taking her to get it done?
My wife and her mom are going.
Okay.
So.
Interesting. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, it's going to be weird.
At least you're a few years away from your kid wanting to get it done.
I don't think he will, honestly. No? Just knowing how he is now, unless something drastically changes, I don't think it's going to happen.
You can never really tell once they hit puberty, though, what's going to happen there. I was on John Dunning's They Said We Said YouTube show this week with the EDH Recast, so I thought I'd quick plug that. John is a really nice guy. He puts on a really good, like 6 different really good shows. Mm-hmm. So I was on one of them, and if you haven't checked out his stuff before, do so on YouTube. It was a real good time, and I think we did a pretty good job promoting that podcast in EDH Rec and just having a good conversation with John. So that's something I would recommend checking out and would appreciate the clicks as well, and I'm sure John would also. If you want to find this particular podcast I'm on social media, how would you do that, Chris?
You can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. You can Facebook search us CMDR Central. You can YouTube search us CMDR Central, and you can find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
And, of course, you can head over to patreon.com and search CMDR Central. Check out our reward tiers, and we are giving away that Rolesk Apex Hybrid deck we built back on episode 100.
Yes.
And you'll still have a little bit of time by the end of the month to support us to get entered to win that.
By the time this airs, I'm trying to mathematically fit. Yeah, I think this will still be.
This airs on the 30th.
All right. See, good call, Max.
First is Saturday.
Okay, cool.
I know these things.
And we'll announce we'll announce the winner after. Yeah, because you're like on the clock for your new house situation. All right. Let's do a deck tech.
Okay.
I said Kennodise. It could be Kennodise. I don't know which one of those two is correct. Odds are neither of them is right.
That's where my money's going.
Those pronunciations are incorrect.
I will not take a stab at this one.
Chris is smart. He lets Max and I stumble around like a couple idiots getting it wrong. So we have a few notes here, Max. You want to share those with the listeners?
So the notes we received, the deck revolves around using its true hidden commander, Sunforger, to the utmost potential, basically turning the deck into a giant toolbox. You know, the plan is going to be tutor for Sunforger, equip it, and control the game while protecting the Sunforger itself and Ramos. Ramos was picked just because it's a generic 5-color commander. He can be cast with any combination. You know, the stuff we've probably talked about in the past. It's a very combo-based deck. Really, you need Ramos and Sunforger, some sort of spell recursion like Ratio Lantern or Wheel of Sun and Moon. And then you can also use Deadeye Navigator to reset Ramos' ability to continue to rip those counters off every turn. And then as long as there's such a pinger on the battlefield like an electrostatic field, it just kind of ends the game quickly, I think.
Yeah, there's quite a few infinite loops here. Abzan Charm, Jun Charm on the pinger on board. Boros Charm does it, and he's just going to crank as many of those out in a loop as possible to kill somebody. You can also just grind people out control style. That's what he did originally, but now it's very much a dedicated combo deck. So he has 2 main issues. He struggles to make this deck better against more aggressive matchups while keeping a reasonable amount of functional elements. And he struggles to make use of the instants that end up in hand via drawing that he wants in his deck. So he wants a way to recycle those, maybe put them straight back into the deck efficiently. Looking for maybe more efficient ways to get the infinite combo engine going. And he's looking to stay $30 per card for the max for everything he's doing here. And he's got a few notes about his playgroup, too.
Yeah, so his playgroup is a little bit all over the place since it undergoes a shifting period of commander players. So His friends are certainly exploring other different types, but a lot of his meta is aggressive gameplay with 2 Infect decks and a Krenko deck. But they're all kind of in the power level of 6.5 to 7 out of 10.
And he's also forbade himself from playing a few cards like Doubling Season, Conflux, because he wants to keep the deck power level kind of equal to what the group is doing. And some cards kind of feel like cheating, he said.
So Krenko's just cheating in general.
Yeah.
Ramos, you mean?
No, Krenko. He said he plays against the Krenko. Yeah, that's just a cheating deck in general.
Yeah, that's true. Like,
Yes,
if someone's
it
playing
is.
Krenko, you shouldn't feel too awful bad about it. So this is a little bit outside my wheelhouse, playing a dedicated combo deck like this. So first thing I will note, this is the problem with this kind of a combo deck, and I say problem not in a bad way, more like, I don't know what word is a better use, but with this kind of deck where you're going for a specific combo, the best thing you can do almost always is more tutors.
Yes.
Because it's going to find those pieces that you need to make the thing happen. So just like on a generic level, if all you cared about was powering up this deck to make it more consistent, you would put 7 more tutors in here. And there's already quite a few. But like the more you have, the more consistently you're going to find those pieces to get the loop going and win the game. That then, though, the more you run, the more linear the deck gets. So then it's a question of finding that balance between keeping the deck interesting and requiring you to work the pieces in kind of a mesh that plays together to eventually find that win condition versus just having so many tutors that you just go get your win condition.
Yep.
And based on him talking about like not wanting doubling season, things like that, I feel like he probably doesn't want to just go the 17 tutor route and go grab his piece and get everything going immediately and auto win. So I think we'll skip even looking at addressing that or looking at that because it's just such an easy thing to do, and I just don't think that's the direction he wants to go. So first things first, let's just take a look at the land base here. Chris, do you like the amount of basics that are ran in this deck right now?
No, I do not.
But it is a 5-color deck.
I still don't like it. There should be minimum 2 of each basic in a 5-color deck. In my opinion, whenever I built 5-color, I've always gotten a minimum of 2 of each basic.
2 plains, 2 swamps, and 1 forest, 1 mountain, 1 island.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, well, here's the thing. I agree with what you're saying, but if you're not getting punished, like if no one runs back to basics or no one runs Blood Moon or Magus of the Moon, that's a different, and you only play in your meta if you're not going and playing at shops, and if you're not going and or you're playing in the same shop, and you're not going and playing in 6 different shops or going to play at Magic Fest with this card regularly, and you never ever see a Blood Moon, why not be greedy? Like it's only a problem if you get punished for it, right?
True. This is how he's going to get punished for it. By looking at this land base, all the shock lands, the lands that come into play tapped, the fetches, you are paying life for these lands or a turn, and you said you're playing fast aggro decks.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
that
that
you're
is
feeding into
punishing
them,
you
for
right
sure.
there.
Yes.
I totally agree, Chris. I think just taking out the tri-lands, although they help fix, taking that turn off against an aggro meta is not fun in my opinion.
Specifically like Arcane Sanctum, are you talking
Yep.
Panorama, those kind of ones?
Both, really. The Arcane Sanctum, the Panoramas, I guess, are fine, but they only get basics, and you're not running a lot of them.
And they do cost you a mana, and they come
Yep.
into play tapped.
I mean, taking all those out just for more basics, so you always have a land coming in untapped, is probably smart.
Yeah, I would agree. Generally speaking, I would say even it doesn't matter what your meta's like. The more lands you can run that don't come into play tapped, the better life is going to be in general. It doesn't matter if you're playing aggro decks or you're not playing aggro decks. That just makes your deck function a lot more smoothly. I understand in a 5-color deck, you've got a lot less options, and the more lands you have that tap for multiple colors, the less likely you are to find yourself missing that black mana you need or that red mana you need. But I just don't feel it's worth the huge tempo hit when half your lands or so are coming into play tapped regularly, even if they do sometimes fix. And you can cast Ramos without the fixing. Like Ramos kind of fixes to a degree himself.
Yes.
So I would clean that up a little bit too. I don't know necessarily, like we just got those, we're getting that new cycle of
Canopy lands,
although those ding you for life too. We're just discussing losing life to aggro decks.
I would rather get ping for 1 and immediately have my land online than to go shock for 2 to have it online, or fetch shock for 3.
Fetch shock for 3 it's easy to say life, because we always do that. We're like, oh, it's commander, it's life. And it doesn't, that's true. It doesn't matter, but it does matter too. Like it does. Like it can make a huge difference. I am as reckless as anybody with my life total. There's been a ton of games when I've got down to like that 4 life range and drawn that ambition's cost. I'm like, I can't cast this right now. Like my draw spells, and then I have to think, and I'm like, okay, what can I, like, oh, I've got 4 more draw spells in this deck, and I can't cast any of them right now at this point in the game.
Yep. See, the big thing that what I want to say about that is that this is 5 colors.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, we usually play 2 to 3 colors, so you're only running 1 or 2 pain lands type of deal like this. This is running all 5.
Yep.
All that stuff. So they're all 10. So it's actually hurting you a lot more than you think it is.
Yeah.
10 pain lands, that's 10 shocks that you sometimes are going to want to come into play untapped.
Yep.
That does add up in a way it really doesn't in a 2 or 3 color deck.
Yes.
And I think he has the majority of the fetches in here as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
And that will also fix some of that, like, taking out the frontier, bivouac kind of lands that tap for 3 colors. The fact that he's running a bunch of fetches does make it easier to fix.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you're right, he is losing a bunch of life, bringing those shocks in, but it also maybe that offsets that. I think you don't want both. You don't want to have everything dinging you for life, and you don't want a ton of ETB tap lands. You can survive maybe with one or the other, but you don't want both, and I think there's too much of both happening here.
Yep.
So, man, I love shock lands, and I do think I would keep the shock cycle in. Is there 10 pain lands in here?
There are no pain lands.
No
No pain lands, okay. I wonder if I would maybe pull a couple of shocks out, because you're never going to fetch all 10. Maybe run.
Challenge accepted. You should have seen my 5-color sliver deck.
Well, that's true, yeah. Like the odds of you having to fetch all 10 are in needing to do so perfectly. I wonder if there aren't a few of those you could slide out for ones that don't, like, whether it's Battle for Zendikar lands, where you're not getting dinged for life quite as frequently.
Yep, especially if they're gonna come into play tapped anyways. I'd rather fetch out those and go for 1 life than go for the 3 if you need it untapped.
So we mentioned Tutors. They are next on the list right here. Sunforger Tutors, and there's 9 of them, which is a lot. But like the way this deck is working, where it needs the Sunforger out as a hidden commander for everything to work, 9 seems like a good number. We're looking at Beseech the Queen, Deadeye Quartermaster, Drift of Phantasms, Enlightened Tutor, Fabricate, Open the Armory, Steel Shaper's Gift, Stoneforge Mystic, and Trophy Mage. Any of those, we'll assume he's going to stay at the same number.
Yeah.
Are any of those you would change or do differently?
I get rid of Beseech the Queen for Demonic Tutor. Demonic Tutor's within the $30 budget, and it just is much better than Beseech the Queen.
I would probably put Diabolic Tutor in there in that slot. It's a 5-color deck, and hitting trip black is difficult. And if you don't hit trip black, and even if you're playing double black, then at that point it's a Diabolic Tutor.
True.
So like the only time you are ever saving anything over a Diabolic Tutor is if you just so happen to have triple black mana out. And I feel like there's just not going to be a lot of times you happen to have triple black out in this deck, in a 5-color deck. Demonic's better, but I would probably almost run Diabolic over Beseech the Queen in this deck, and definitely Demonic I would run over it as well. Deadeye Quartermaster is a relatively new card. When it enters the battlefield, it's a creature. You may search your library for an equipment or vehicle card, reveal it, and put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. Particularly because you can just go grab Sunforger with that. That's a pretty good card, and it gives you a body that can block with afterwards. Again, like you could for the same mana, you can run Diabolic, but in this deck where you're pretty much only going to be going for Sunforger, and there's also things like Deadeye Navigator that you can blink that thing with and recur it. This is one where I think the creature tutors really do totally make sense. What do you think of Drift of Phantasms?
It transmutes to go get Sunforger.
Yeah.
Or it's an 0-5 defender with flying.
Yeah.
I mean, worst case scenario, if you really need it, like if you're playing against those fast aggro decks, that 0-5 could just be
relevant,
worth it. Yeah.
Particularly if you have, that's true. You know what? That was one of the ones I wasn't sure about, but because you have 9 tutors, you're probably going to have redundancy once in a while, and if you have that Fabricate in hand, and then you top deck this, you can be like, oh, I'm planning on using the Fabricate anyway, I might as well just play this as a creature and have it soak up a few of those Krenko swings. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure I buy that, though, because on the other hand, if this is because the transmute cost is 3 on it, again, if this is even a Diabolic Tutor where you're spending 1 more mana to go get any target,
Yeah.
I think that's probably worth it. I guess it depends on whether you use it as a blocker more frequently than you use it as a universal tutor. But like, yeah, you can play it as a blocker if you have another tutor in hand. Conversely, you can use it as a tutor to go get anything. If you already have a Sunforger tutor, you can just say, oh, well, I have a Sunforger, Sunforger already. I'm just going to use this to go get a protection spell or a removal spell or that Wheel of Sun and Moon to be able to keep things recycling. So that's one. I think Drift of Phantasms is probably a really good card in this deck if he's going 15 or 17 tutors deep. But I think I would take a universal tutor over Drift. I think at that point, with only running the 9. Enlightened for 1 mana. That's always good.
That's great.
Fabricate, super solid. It's a budget version kind of Transmute Artifact, but I think it's plenty good. Open the Armory, efficient. Steel Shaper's Gift is really efficient. Stoneforge.
Makes sense.
Modern Legal. Should be Modern Legal. No. I love, slightly off topic, you ever go look at like the price trajectory graphs for Stoneforge Mystic? Basically, every time there's an unban cycle for Modern, it spikes up $7 or $8 or $10 and drops back down. And like everyone's like,
because
they're going to unban it this time.
Every Modern player believes wholeheartedly that Stoneforge Mystic wouldn't hurt the format.
And maybe it wouldn't.
Because you don't have Skull Clamp
Sure.
in the format. You don't really have any good equipment in the format that would break it with Stoneforge
And
Mystic coming into
the
play.
format's gotten so fast and so good anyway, it probably would be fine. I
The
don't
best
disagree.
thing you're going to do is go Batter Skull, and then they're going to kill it next turn and be like, you ain't putting that Batter Skull in for cheap.
Right.
But it is just hilarious to just watch the prices on it every time because everyone's like, this time it's going to happen, man. Stoneforge is going to be legal. And the last one here is Trophy Mage, 3 mana to go get your 3 mana artifact as well. Again, just like Stoneforge, just like Deadeye Quartermaster, that one's blinkable and recurable, and this deck cares about those things. So that one, even though it's limited artifacts, that one I think is a good call too. Drift of Phantasms is the main one I would probably reconsider along with Beseech the Queen.
Yeah.
Synergy, which is his way of saying synergy with the
hammer.
The old hammer. You got Auriok Survivors that comes in the battlefield to return an equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Brass Squire, which attaches an equipment card to a creature you control. You have Kazul's Toll Collector, which lets you attach equipment to Kazul's Toll Collector. Basically, it's a cheap way to equip Sunforger to save your mana for de-equipping it. Lena and Shakiri, which lets you use equipment abilities at any time, including instant speed. And the Pure Steel Paladin that lets you equip for 0.
Yep.
So those are all cards in this deck that make sense. The one thing I would say about them is these are all things that you would probably want to have the option to go get with that Drift of Phantasms if you didn't have any better use for it. So again, I think that's the reason I would run Diabolic or Demonic or something in those slots, because if you already have a way to get your Sunforger, then this can go get one of those equipped creatures. It can go get that Pure Steel Paladin, and Drift of Phantasms can't.
Yeah. I think I'd like to see Sun Titan over the Survivors. It's the same amount of mana, and it's going to get a lot of these other utility creatures or your other artifacts or even some of your lands back later in the game if Sunforger is protected.
So Survivors is 5 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Sun Titan is
when it
4
enters,
and double white.
4 double white.
So it costs 1 more white to do, but it's the same average seems. Same converted seems.
Bigger body.
Yep.
Has vigilance, and then when it ETBs or attacks, bring a permanent with CMC 3 or less back from the graveyard to the battlefield.
So it'll get your Sunforger on ETB just like Auriok Survivors.
Yep.
And every time it swings, it will have an option to do the same thing again on a much bigger body.
Yep. It's a more intrusive threat than the Survivors, I think, because it's a repeatable effect.
So the main difference is Survivors attaches it, and Titan doesn't.
Yep. But you could also work it where you go get Kazul's Toll Collector, bring that in, then when you attack, you bring back the Sunforger and equip it for free.
Yeah.
During your second main phase.
Yeah. I see why he's running Survivors. I think you make a good point. I would bet it's one of those things that I would have to see the deck in action to see which one winds up. Because I do think attaching it's relevant.
Yep.
But I do think there's probably going to be plenty of games, too, where when you draw this and your Sunforger isn't in the graveyard, then this isn't doing you a whole lot of good.
Right.
Whereas when you draw the Sunforger and Sunforger isn't, or excuse me, when you draw the Sun Titan and Forger is in your graveyard, Sun Titan's still doing stuff. With this many fetch lands, there's plenty of time Sunforger is going to give you a lot of extra gas too. So I would wager the added utility of Sunforger offsets the fact that it doesn't equip, because it's almost always going to be relevant, and this is only really relevant if there's an equipment in your graveyard.
Yep.
So that makes sense. And I'm curious if he's tried Sunforger over Auriok Survivors or not. We'll have to find out.
Sun Titan.
Sorry, Sun Titan. Couple combo pieces are next on his list. Deadeye Navigator and Electrostatic Field. So Deadeye Navigator is, I guess, an okay card.
Yeah.
To be honest, I have not seen a Deadeye Navigator in a while. I saw one like 2 weeks ago in our shop. I have not seen Deadeye Navigator cast in quite a while.
I don't play it.
Not that it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, it's
awesome. It's a fantastic card. I'm saying I haven't seen it in a while. But yeah, so basically I get why it's here. It's Deadeye Navigator. It's like saying Cyclonic Rift is in your deck. Yeah, okay, I get it. Like, it's pretty straightforward. Electrostatic Field is interesting. Have you guys ever seen that in a deck?
I have in some Spellslinger-based decks, like Kest decks, play it.
Oh,
because
that makes sense, sure.
You can at least get 2 damage off it.
The Modern Legal Kest, did you see that?
Yep.
Literally just got this afternoon. It's now a Modern Legal card.
Won't get played.
No.
Well, I'm curious, though, if it couldn't be a new deck. I don't know what deck it would fit into, but I'm curious if someone isn't trying to brew.
So weak. They're so modern.
Well, it doesn't have the access to the crazy spells that it does in Legacy. So anyway, off topic. Electrostatic Field is a defender for 2 mana. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So this is one of those things when he starts his loop going with Sunforger and resetting things, it's just going to kill somebody.
Yep.
And it's also efficient at 2 mana. And it's a 0/4. I mean, this card's probably always going to be doing something. So I don't know what I would change out there with those two.
I would add a couple.
Okay, what'd you add?
Gutter Snipe does more damage to each opponent. Does 2 damage. The new Ral Zarek from War of the Spark does it to 1 target player or creature, but his ability to let you copy the cast with his -2 is solid.
And if you're looping it, you don't care if it's with 1 person, because you're just going to keep looping it until...
And Ral's uptick of scrying would be huge.
Yeah.
And at 4 mana, it's not that expensive, and it's going to give him 2+1/+1 counters for Ramos.
Yeah, I like that. I like both of those. Gutter Snipe, too. Gutter Snipe's great. It is 3 mana, and he's a little more fragile than the Electrostatic Field, but redundancy is almost always really, really useful.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't be upset to see Gutter Snipe get taken out knowing I'm going to play this next turn, or vice versa.
Yes, right. It's a way to bait that removal, too. Like, if you have just having the redundancy is really, really nice. Yeah, those are both good calls. How about the Sunforger package here?
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, that's a pretty deep list. And these are all things that work within the loop when he's basically trying to loop different things. So we mentioned Abzan Charm. There's Advent of the Worm, which is just going to make green worms creature tokens. That's going to get a loop he's going to try to get going. Anguish Unmaking for removal, Boros Charm. Cauldron Haze. We'll mention that briefly. Choose any number of target creatures. Each of those creatures gains persist until end of turn. I was looking, is there a combo with this, or is this just a protection spell that you can go get with Sunforger?
I think it's just a protection spell.
Okay.
Because I didn't see anything that does anything with counters in this deck. There's no Vizier remedies or anything like that.
And it makes sense. It's going to put 2 counters on Ramos and bring him back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, okay. I get it. Chaos Warp, great removal spell. Counterflux is a tutorable counter spell. There's not a ton of those. There's a few of them, but there's not a ton of them. So that's definitely one of the more efficient ones there. Eladrami's Call, also now Modern Legal. And you can go get one of the creatures for his combo. That's really, really good. Master Warcraft, I always forget that Sunforger can get 4 mana spells, right?
Yep.
So this one doesn't, I don't think, I always want to put this in a deck, and I've never ever ran it. It's 2 and hybrid Boros, so 4 total for an instant. Cast this spell before attackers are declared. You choose which creatures attack this turn, and you choose which creatures block this turn. So is that just being ran as a fog kind of effect here?
I've seen it in both ways. I think our local Boros player has played this with her Sunforger deck. I think it can be used as a offensive spell when you have like an extra combat step spell in your deck. You can decide who gets to block or nobody gets to block you. But it can also be used defensively where you choose
Nothing's attacking
me.
Okay. So it's just a tutorable Sunforger target that gives you some flexibility. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't like this card at all because there is a rules thing in question here in my mind right now. Because as a rule state, as soon as you enter combat, then you go to declare attackers. There's a change of priority right there. Now, once someone enters combat and you cast this card to choose who attacks, they can still choose to attack you with the creatures that you didn't choose. So pretty much you have to fog them and say none of your creatures can attack. Because once your spell resolves, then they choose whoever you didn't choose to attack you.
I am not sure I follow that.
Okay, so it says you choose which creatures attack this turn.
Yes, yep.
Okay, so if you choose these 3 creatures attack this turn. Okay, they choose those creatures, they attack you, they attack everyone else with the rest of them. You choose the creatures block or whatever, you know?
Yep.
So, but as soon as you choose the creatures, they're going to choose them to attack you then.
Oh, sure, because you're not choosing who they attack.
You don't choose who attacks who does what. So that's one of the reasons I don't like this card.
And you cannot decide that a creature won't block.
Yep.
You have to assign blockers and you have to assign attackers.
Yeah, I feel like for that effect, I would just rather go get a Holy Day most of the time. That just as a fog.
Yeah.
And has the added advantage of if you draw this Master Warcraft in your hand and you're not Sunforgering it, then you're like, oh, now I got to spend 4 mana to use it. If you draw that Holy Day, or even a fog, I guess you're in green and we're not limited to Boros stuff. Although I guess this is Sunforgerable.
Yeah.
But if you go get the Holy Day or something, or if it's in your hand, you just have to spend 1. So maybe there's some extra synergy here that I didn't see, but I don't think so. I just think I would rather go with the efficient spell.
Yeah, I mean, it's not in the instant section of Ramos on EDH Rec.
Okay.
So it might just be a preferential choice.
Rakdos Charm, I just want to briefly mention this because I don't have a Rakdos deck currently, but I guess I could run it in my Kresh deck. I think Rakdos Charm should see more play. Like, there's been enough... each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. There's enough times when I've seen someone do something, whether it's a zombie deck when they just put out a bunch of zombie tokens or something and they can't attack. Rakdos Charm just kills people sometimes for 2 mana.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not like the other modes aren't relevant. Instant speed hit a graveyard and instant speed destroy an artifact. Like, the other 2 modes are really, really good too, but it's a legit kill spell in some metas. I think being able to go Sunforger it is great here. I think it's a great card in general. And I just think it should get played more. Just that's it. So I'm just throwing that out there because I like to talk about Rakdos Charm, but it's a good card. Render Silent is another fetchable counterspell. Makes sense there. How about Return to Dust?
I mean, it's if you're doing it for free off of Sunforger, I wouldn't mind not being my turn. It's going to solve a problem. That's really all this is a toolbox. You're doing it to solve problems at a specific time. So,
yeah, it's Sunforgerable. That's a big deal. The problem usually with Return to Dust is it's an instant speed spell, but like 95% of the time you cast it as a sorcery speed so you can hit 2 targets. But, yeah, being able to go get it is probably worthwhile. I'm kind of on the edge.
Crush Contraband's probably just better.
Well, how about Wear and Tear?
Yeah.
But you can't cast both halves. You can't cast both halves off Sunforger.
So Crush Contraband's probably the better replacement because it hits 1 of each.
Yeah.
Every time.
Right. No matter what point in the game when you cast it.
You can hit up to 2 different things.
Yeah, I think I would probably run Crush Contraband over Return to Dust here too. Wear and Tear is only better if it's in your hand, I guess, because it's 1 mana cheaper. Settle the Wreckage. Just a beater in general.
I love this card. For against an aggro deck, this is great.
Yeah, it is great, but I'm going to go devil's advocate on this. When you hit a Krenko player with that, and they go for 12 basic lands, and then put Krenko back in, and then they're like, oh, guess what? This turn, I'm just going to kill you.
Yeah.
Well, and that is the problem with Settle the Wreckage against an aggro deck is you give, just the way Settle the Wreckage works, you give the aggro player a way to rebuild after that.
Yeah.
That board wipe.
Now,
that could be a Krenko kind of deck.
Settle would be awesome if you're playing if you go to a GP or something like that. You know, because it's not going to be on people's radars. You know, they see a Sunforger, they're not going to think about it. But in your meta, your friends are going to be looking at you and going to be like, oh, I got these 7 tokens I'm going to be swinging at you every turn. I hope you settle me. Just do it once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll recast Krenko and tap him and start the process all over again with twice as many lands.
Yes.
My joy with Settle is always doing it against the person with the greedy mana base. And it's like, cool, I just
You have
exiled
basics,
8 creatures and you have all your 4 basics on the field.
Which won't be a problem against the Krenko deck because they just have mountains
that's all
for
they
days. Yeah. Fairies Protection, great card. It's tutorable with Sunforger. You can't loop it and reuse it infinitely, but that's fine as well. Trap Essence is a really useful, fetchable, tutorable Sunforger counterspell. It's good. And Utter End, same thing. You can grab it, do your work. That's solid there as well.
I have a suggestion for a card that has not been released yet. The new Beast Within in white.
Yes, because it's Sunforgerable as well.
Yep.
Gift.
Elephant gifts.
Yeah, elephant gifts. That's not what it is, but yes. That makes the green elephant.
Yes.
That's going to be in a lot of decks. of mine, let alone everyone else's. That would be one I would probably run in here for sure. Because the reason Beast Within is not here is because you can't Sunforger it, and you can the new elephant gift. So yes, that's a good call.
Does Sunforger get sorceries, right?
No, just
Instance.
Dang, okay, never mind.
So it can get the new
path.
Yeah. Wraths. 4 Wraths. Merciless Eviction, Supreme Verdict, Toxic Deluge, and Cyclonic Rift is more or less. I always count it as a board wipe too. What do you guys think of those 4? 2 of them are tutorable.
Yep.
Oh, no, actually, it's only one of them is. Only Supreme Verdict is. With Sunforger, anyway.
because they're sorceries.
Oh, yeah, duh. Yeah. Which we just discussed
Merciless
13 seconds ago.
Eviction, out of all of them, I don't like. Just because of the meta that he told us that he plays in, I would prefer to have the 4 mana Wraths. Because they're
Wraths.
faster,
Yeah.
they're cheaper, you can get them online better. Toxic Deluge I like, but I don't like at the same time, and this is going to come back to the land base that we had with all the life that you're paying, plus the Deluge pay. I mean, it could just set you back to the point where you're just going to lose because of your own cards.
The one new card I think is going to be good in this deck, again, based on his meta, is the black Force of Blackness. That's not what it is, but like
Pact of Death or whatever.
yes, Pact of something-ish.
We are going to get so much
We
flack
are
for this.
We're going to get killed for it. The card isn't even released yet, so I guess we'll... So the new black
Force
I'm looking
card.
it up.
card. Max is looking up while we talk about it. It's 3 mana. It's 2 black and 1. And you destroy all creatures that entered the battlefield this turn.
Yep.
And you can cast it for free by exiling a black spell on
If
someone
it's
else's
not your turn. Yep.
But like, even at 3 mana, particularly if you are regular seeing that Krenko deck, who's for the most part making stuff they're going to be attacking with a bunch of times, I think that might be a solid card in this deck.
The downside to cards like that, and I'm going to bring this up because this is 5 colors, is you're going to have to start skewing your color base.
And you also have to then, it doesn't do any good necessarily against 3 different players.
Yep.
A Wrath of God just kills everyone's creatures. That only deals with one person's stuff.
Yeah, we're just hating on the Krenko player.
Yep.
So whoever your buddy is that's
right.
a Krenko player, let him listen to this because he's going to be like, what?
Everything's about stopping that Krenko deck for some reason.
And the card is Force of Despair.
All right, there we go. Force of Despair. Okay. I kind of agree, though, because I like Merciless Eviction a lot. But yeah, I do think the flexibility is useful. But against aggro decks, is it maybe worth... Do you want to wait that many turns?
Yeah, now if you're playing a basic unknown meta, it's perfectly good
Yeah.
card. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to knock on it. It's just with the meta that he's in, I think that we need to lower the CMC and make it a little bit more efficient.
Okay, yeah. I'm with you there. Draw spells. We have Lunar Mystic, which is probably disgusting once the loop gets going.
I do.
It's a
Max is over here like...
It's a creature, for those that don't remember, this is Avacyn Restored, I think.
Yep.
2 and blue for Human Wizard. Whenever you cast an instant spell, you can pay 1 if you do draw a card. So this is designed, I would assume, for once he gets some manner of Sunforger loop going and probably has, mana. He can pay 3 or 4 mana and draw 3 or 4 cards over the course of it. What do you think of this one, though? Max isn't sold. It doesn't
This
look
is
like.
where my brain and combo don't tie
Sure.
together because I can't see how this helps him.
I feel like there's... Yeah, that's my kind of... I'm in the same boat with you because I'm
no,
like, is there
okay.
enough mana to do all the things and...
And his
You guys
biggest
gotta-
concern is getting them in his hand. He doesn't want the stuff
right,
in his
You
hand.
gotta look back to what he said. He never said anything about infinite combo.
True.
He just said it's combo.
Sure.
So if he can go and hit for 20 points of damage by just comboing and doing this until his turn's over,
That's maybe good
that's
enough.
combo.
Sure, and that's maybe good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
You just infinitely loop Abzan or Chunchar.
Mystic Study, Sylvan Library, Trail of Evidence, and Zephyr Scribe is another creature where you can spend 1 to tap it, draw a card, and discard a card. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you untap it. So again, it winds up being, as long as you have mana and you're casting multiple spells a turn, you can untap it and pay to draw a couple cards.
I don't like Trail of Evidence.
I like Trail of Evidence.
I love it.
Well, no, I like it as a card.
Yes.
I don't know if this is a deck that's going to have a ton of mana lying around for you to crack those clues.
Yeah. I'm going to make 20 clues that are going to sit here and get destroyed by a Vandal Blast.
And I'll use 2 of them.
Yeah.
I think it's such a cliched card to mention because it's so popular nowadays. Mystic Remora is probably just going to draw you more cards easier.
Stop. I saw this. You don't want to know. This card's up to like $5 or $6
Remora
now.
is?
Yes, and I swear to God, it's all your fault. This is why.
It's not just me pushing it, but yes, it's the last year. And like it was a 20-cent card for forever.
And that's why I got a lot of them because it's just like, well, it's so cheap. Why would I not have these?
So, like I would just dare say that draws you more cards easier and doesn't require all the mana expenditure. Yes, there's going to be some games where you make 7 or 8 clues and you happen to have the mana free and you crack them all and it's great. But I've had those games with who's the green creature that makes clues on landfall?
Tireless Tracker.
I've had Tireless Tracker games in Mina and Den where I've had 6 clues sitting there and I'm like, well, I can crack 1 and that's it. And I'm like trying to like find ways to get mana free.
Now you're comparing apples to oranges because Tracker just gets bigger and better.
Right, but even then, I'm just saying like it's tough to find the mana sometimes to do that, particularly in Commander. And I think that's going to be the same case here, where you're going to have a tough time sometimes finding the mana to use Trail of Evidence.
Yep, because the more and more I look at this deck, and this is something I did write down in my notes. This deck is very sprawled out between the two things it's trying to do. It's trying to play a control deck.
Yep.
And it's trying to combo.
Right.
And I think what you need to do is to choose one or the other. If you're going to play control, then Trail of Evidence is awesome. Other cards are awesome.
Yep.
But you got to pull out your electrostatic field and other stuff that combos. And you need to put in more efficient creatures that get you to either draw cards or...
make bodies.
The big one I was thinking of was like Dragonlord Ojutai.
Yep.
Because you're worried about drawing your instance. Well, that anticipates. You look at the top 3. You take one, the other 2 go to the bottom.
Yeah, if this was a Labman deck or something, like a Labman combo deck, where you're just trying to play control until your plans come together and all the pieces are there, and then you're just going to win, then this is probably a great card because at the end of the turn before yours, before the end of your turn, I'm going to use the 4 mana I didn't use in these counter spells to crack 2 clues and draw 2 cards, and then rinse and repeat that for the next 6 or 7 turns. I don't think this deck works that way. I think he's spending a lot of mana making things happen, getting Ramos out, getting Sunforger, looping things, getting everything started. I feel like there's not a bunch of mana sitting around free to crack clue tokens.
Now, I could give him an awesome, infinite combo to go with this where you just have so much mana, but I'm not going to do this.
Put the new Urza in here and just tap those clues for free mana all you want to.
I don't know. I think card selection is what he needs in this deck versus card draw, something like Jace's Sanctum.
Yeah, so whenever you cast a spell, you scry down.
Yep, and you cast off a Sunforger, so it's like, oh, I don't want that. I don't want to draw this card. I'm going to put it on the bottom. I'll draw land,
Right, that might be more useful because I think it's the same CMC as Trail of Evidence, I believe.
It's 4.
It's a 4, okay.
So, colorless, dope blue.
Yep.
But being able to dig down might be just as useful as drawing in this case without having to have the mana investment.
Yep.
Yeah. The one card I really wanted to suggest was Search for Azcanta. But it's such a good card, but it would not work in this deck at all.
Yeah. And it's also it doesn't necessarily play well with Sylvan Library too, and that's not a reason not to run it, but like it always feels bad to have cards that don't stack.
The one card I'm going to suggest though, since we're on the draw topic and how we're like scrying and stuff like that, is Scroll Rack. Now I realize this card is over the $30 limit, but is it worth it to save your pennies for it and get one because it will help this deck out stupendously.
Particularly if you tend to have stuff in hand, being able to dig down and put those cards back in your library where you can Sunforger them, because that's one of the problems he said he had, and this is Scroll Rack really addresses that as well.
Yep, I know it's outside the budget, but it's worth it to come up with the extra $25 for it and go get one.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that does 2 different things that this deck wants to do, so that makes sense there.
Yeah, and then he also has Zephyr Scribe, which is just a blue, tap it, draw a card, and then discard, but when you cast a non-creature spell, you can untap it. But I don't think the looting is what he wants to be doing in this deck either, because he doesn't have a lot of recursion like a Archaeomancer or a, well, Omens. Nope, that's in white.
That draws.
Yeah.
I would put, if you were going to go the recursion route, I'd play the Elixir of Immortality because it goes back into your deck as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plus, you're gaining the 5 life. You're playing against fast aggro decks. I mean, it just, this turned into a Theros standard all over again in my mind right now.
And see, I was waiting for Chris to say he just needs to play an Eldrazi, and then he doesn't have to worry about any of it.
That's part of my control list that I was thinking in my mind. If I built this as control, I'd be like, so there'd be this Titan in there, and there would be the Nexus of Fate to be in here.
So how about the ramp package? Couple rocks, Chromatic Lantern, Commander Sphere, Darksteel Ingot, Felwar Stone, Soul Ring, obviously, and then you have things like Farseek to get a land, Nature's Lore gets a land, Rampant Growth. Sylvan Caryatid is a nice blocker, probably against those aggro decks, and Mirari's Wake as a mana doubler.
Ooh.
I don't like the Mirari's Wake. If I understand why it's in here, just because of the mana double, so you get more stuff that you can do and stuff like that. The way this deck plays, I don't know if you really want the mana doubler. I'd rather have an actual ramp spell or a rock or something that's there.
I would want a fast mana rock, like, and again, they're over budget. Your Crypt, your Vault, your Monolith, but even something like Paradox Engine that's going to untap all these other rocks. Again, over budget a little bit, but it's only about $10 over budget.
I don't love Mirari's Wake in this deck. Now, I think the +1 is mostly lost on your deck. It doesn't really do very much. But if I wanted to run a piece of enchantment ramp, it would be Mana Reflection, because Mana Reflection affects any source that puts mana in, and you have a commander that makes mana.
Yep.
So for that reason alone, I think that I would pay the 1 extra for Mana Reflection over Mirari's Wake. But I tend to agree I would just run an efficient, cheap one that gets you. I just put another rock in that slot probably, or another land fetcher, whether it's like I don't even know what, Into the North, and run a couple snow basics so you can go get them for that.
I
2
would
mana.
go with the 2 mana green one that goes for anything but a forest.
Farseek.
Yeah,
Farseek is
Farseek's
in here.
Oh, it is in there. I missed it. I was looking. I'm like, why is this not in here?
He has Nature's Lore, he has Rampant Growth, and he has Farseek, which are 3 mana ones. There's 3 visits, which is like $80 now. I wouldn't recommend that. Particularly, though, because we're just getting the full art Snowlands and Horizons, and there's not a ton of basics here. You could throw in...
You could swap them all out.
Swap them all out for snow basics for, $4, and then put an Into the North, which basically winds up being then a second copy of Rampant Growth. Gives you 1 more 2 mana ramp spell. So that's probably the direction I would go there. At least I would replace Darksteel Ingot. I don't think Darksteel Ingot's good enough. I don't think Indestructible is worth what it does.
I do like that it's any color mana. I mean, so it does.
It does, sure. But again, I would maybe run, like if I was going to run a 3 mana rock in that slot, it would maybe be Coalition Relic because it can double up every other turn.
Yep.
And that could be relevant in this particular deck. So that I might do instead. But I just don't. At least I haven't seen a time recently when Darksteel Ingots being indestructible has mattered.
Not in a long time.
Yeah, and I've even seen them survive Vandal Blast before, and my response has always been, "Oh, well, that worked out nicely for you, but who cares? Because we're all still at. By the time someone casts Vandal Blast, you're at 8 lands anyway, or something. So who cares? It's not that big of a deal. Maybe if you are like regularly seeing Armageddons or seeing things like that, maybe Jockala Hops.
Seen Obliterate or something.
Yeah, having it survive that is a big deal, but I think if you don't see those in the way this deck is built, I don't think he's seeing those regularly. I would rather just run a 2 mana rock there in that slot, or like I said, Into the North or something. Sylvan Caryatid I have not seen in a long time. I
would rather find like a multicolored mana dork, so you get some counters on Ramos if this is a late gameplay.
And it does have hexproof, so it survives, and maybe it's going to eat a few of those Krenko tokens that are swinging in early again, assuming that's really the problem. I like Caryatid, but I feel like it's not quite good enough.
I think almost substituting for something that's going to make tokens when you are comboing like a Young Pyromancer or a Docent of Perfection that are going to make a bunch of tokens, those are going to eat up multiple tokens versus 1 blocker compared to 80 goblins.
Yeah, I would guess at the end of the day, the amount of times Sylvan Caryatid comes down and doesn't really make a difference versus the amount of times that Gutter Snipe would come down in that same slot and turn a game in
100% around, yeah.
Again, maybe having not played the deck, it's easy to like speculate, but I feel like that's probably what the case is. We have some board stall stuff here. Ghostly Prison, Niblis of Frost, and Propaganda.
Niblis was interesting.
Yeah, this was a little bit older. This was
Shadows over and it's Eldritch Moon.
Eldritch Moon.
So it's 2 blue for a creature spirit. It has flying and prowess, and then whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, essentially Frost Titan something, tap target creature, and it doesn't untap until its controller's next. It doesn't untap during their next untap step. So when you combo off, that's great, but you eventually run out of targets.
Right.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
I think this is a great spot for Padim console innovation.
Okay.
So Padim says your artifacts have hexproof. So that's protecting your commander.
Yep.
And it's protecting Sunforger. I don't really care about your mana rocks, but it's protecting the 2 key pieces of your deck. And then, as long as you control the artifact with the highest CMC, you're going to draw a card. And Ramos sits at 6. That's going to be pretty high most of the time.
Highest.
Yeah.
That or a worm coil, maybe,
No, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I like that. That's a good one. Niblis feels a little fragile to me. I think when I'm thinking about pillow fort type cards that are slowing the game down, I don't like creatures because I think they're too easy to remove. It's really easy to get that false sense of, okay, I'm fine, and then someone Swords to Plowshares your creature and you're no longer fine. And it's just so much easier to remove creatures and enchantments. I'd be very tempted to put Collective Restraint in that slot. It's the same CMC, but it's actually easier to cast. It's 3 and a blue. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays X for each creature attacking you, where X is a number of basic land types among lands you control.
Well, that's 5.
You have 5 different available ones here. Basic land types, too, not number of basic lands. The land types, and if you're running all those fetches and all those shocks that are getting you multiple ones, very easily, like by the time you drop this on turn 4, I bet this deck pretty frequently is already at 3, if not 4, and I bet by turn 6 or 7 very frequently this is up to 5 per creature you have to spend a swing in through with.
This is an enchantment, correct?
It's an enchantment, yep.
Yeah. See, this will work great against your Krenko buddy, because red doesn't get
And
rid of
he's right.
enchantments.
He's like, better hope you draw that Chaos Warp, friend.
Collector Bane.
Man, we are really going hard on the Krenko guy here, aren't we? This poor buddy playing Krenko. Other equipment, Darksteel Plate and Swiftfoot Boots. Those are fetchable with some of his equipment tutors. Darksteel Plate I don't love myself. Maybe it's a meta call, but I feel like we see so much exile. And he's running a bunch of exile stuff in this deck.
Yeah.
Utter End, Anguish Unmaking kind of spells. None of which will save your stuff through a Darksteel Plate. I think Swiftfoot Boots is great, but I just don't know if I love Darksteel Plate anymore. What do you guys think?
I haven't liked it for years.
Yeah. But at the same time, I don't know what else to put in there because you can't put Greaves in.
Right.
Because you need to be able to put the Sunforger on it.
I wonder if it's something like Mask of Avacyn or what's the Champion's Helm maybe, because it does get hexproof too.
Champion's Helm would probably be the best one because it's super cheap.
Yeah.
Sword of Feast and Famine. There we go. That solves the issue of all these lands not having mana. We do that with mana. To continue our trend of sprinkling random references to Modern Horizons in here, we got 2 more swords to choose from.
Yep.
We will cover that on our episode. Yeah, I think Darksteel Plate's the one I would replace with something else, or just not run it. Maybe you just don't run it, and you run one of the other cards we suggested. Maybe if you're looking for a slot for something, maybe Darksteel Plate's one of the things you pull out. It's one of the ones I would be considering pulling out if I'm trying to make room.
Yeah.
I mean, Jet could be fine. I mean, there's so many good options that are, not a whole lot of money to put in here.
Yeah. We got a few pieces of recursion here. Ironclad Slayer, Rito Lantern, and Wheel of Sun and Moon. I might as well read those briefly because they're all a little bit obscure. Wheel of Sun and Moon is an enchantment aura, and it's an enchant player. If a card we put in an enchanted player's graveyard from anywhere, put it on the bottom of that player's library instead. Rito Lantern is an artifact with a 3-mana activated ability where you put a card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. And Ironclad Slayer, when it enters the battlefield, you may return target or equipment card from your graveyard to your hand. So those are all ways to get things back. Actually, Ironclad Slayer probably more belongs over in with the Sunforger, Sunergy package, yes. I think. I like Rito Lantern and Wheel of Sun and Moon. Rito Lantern actually is deceptively useful as a way to prevent other people from doing graveyard recursion stuff.
Yep.
I run it in my, I've just forgot his name, Didgeridoo, my Geru deck, as a way to put Planeswalkers, as a way to put Planeswalkers back in my library to refetch them
Which
with Geru.
makes sense.
But which was the whole reason I ran it, and it never occurred to me until at one point someone's like, I cast as Eternal Witness to go get my Torment of Hailfire or something, and I was like, wait a minute, and like, there's something here, just pause. And I'm like, oh, Right on Lantern, it's target card from a library,
Yep.
It's not mine. I'm like, I'm going to spend 3 mana and put it back on the bottom of your library.
Yep.
Like, that's relevant way more often than you realize. So I like both those 2 cards. Chris mentioned Elixir of Immortality before. That's probably a good one here too. Unfortunately, I think there's just not a ton of ways to put stuff back from your hand into your library, like specific cards, and I think those are probably the 2 best, most efficient ways to do it.
The one card that I was going to suggest for recursion for this, seeing how it's 5 color, would be a Rift Sweeper.
Yeah.
If one of your pieces of your combo gets exiled, or all of them,
You need a way to get them back.
you need a way to get them back. And Rift Sweeper will just bring it back.
Yeah, if someone exiles your Sunforger, particularly this deck that's built around it, you're like, well, I guess I'm going to Ramos Beats now. That's like what you're hoping for. Rift Sweeper gives you one more option to get things started again.
Yes.
So yeah, no, that's a good one I would probably
I
consider.
really
here, for
hope
sure.
that they print more cards similar to that. I'm not saying a lot, but enough to give us more options to be able to do that more often.
Because that's the main best way to do it, is Rift Sweeper.
Yep.
So
Because they changed the rules, and that's
Yes.
not like outside of the game anymore. Because there's quite a few of those cards.
Right?
although you can, the new Karn will get things back from exile.
Yes.
So that's I think maybe that's worth considering here as a way to salvage stuff
Yeah.
back as well. Because it does get its artifacts from exile, but that will get your Sunforger back if someone returns the dust to your own Sunforger. So
Worst comes to worst, you turn your Sunforger into a 3/3, and you're like, you're going to take beats this
Right, there
way.
you go. Send the Sunforger beats. That's the way to go. That's worth bragging about. This is a tricky deck because it's got such a specific thing it wants to do, and I didn't write down a ton of cards to remove because I don't entirely understand. Not that I don't understand it, but like I don't know entirely what pieces are working in what way. And I don't want to suggest taking out this piece and have it be like, oh, that's my only way I can make this particular combo kick off.
Right.
And without seeing a map of each individual combo, when I'm just trying to like look at the 100 cards and guess it, that part's tricky. So hopefully we gave you some useful suggestions without pointing at a ton of removal. Like I think Trail of Evidence is a safe removal because I don't think that's any part of a combo. And I think upgrading that to something like Mystic Remora is safe, but I don't want to go too much into any of the other specific things either because I think a lot of them are parts of a whole, and it's easy to break that if you do it right. Whereas I think Caryatid is not part of one of those combos. Mm-hmm. Although you can tap it and untap it, maybe that's a thing he's doing as well. I don't know.
Maybe.
Overall, I like the idea a lot of Sunforger as a hidden commander, and I do like the idea of using Ramos for that as well.
Yeah, Chris, where's your deck?
Sitting at pieces at home.
You still haven't put it together yet?
Nope. Mine is 100% different. I even have a whole section on it, but I'm not going to get into that.
I will say this. I've seen probably three or four Ramos decks ever, and none of them were remotely similar to one another.
No.
Which I think is a pretty cool thing. I also generally have always felt like, oh, if that person casts Ramos, I'm probably going to lose. Like, it's so good and he does so much stuff that you really can't let Ramos sit around and be played either.
No.
And that's probably a good thing. Like, if your commander's that useful and does that many things, then you're probably doing all right.
Yep.
So, well, hopefully that was helpful. It was a fun night to look at. Thank you very much for sending it to us, and thank you for supporting us on Patreon. We do appreciate it. It keeps Max in pants and keeps the lights on here in the Dungeon of Doom.
Yes, it does.
And if you want to find us on Patreon and support the show, how would you do that, Max?
We did that earlier.
Do it again.
Oh, okay.
Feels good.
Patreon.com/CMDR Central. And as we said on our Slivers show, we're going to be changing those rewards up around July.
So you will have a chance to join us on this show on a Thursday
There
show.
will be some awesome things coming.
For sure. All right. That will be it for this episode. Our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod. And our editor is Ken Peddle. You can find him on Twitter at LOAD3R. You can find me on Twitter at Dana Roach. You can find Max on Twitter at CMDRCentral_Max and Chris at YSquishy1. We'll be back on Monday with a new show. Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max. Oh, what's up, homie?
Oh, that's what it was. See you guys then.